Don't mind the sweat stains, it's a little bit hot in here still. If you feel like you're an imposter post-diagnosis because you're trying to heal, you're trying to think good thoughts, you no longer buy into the stigma, you don't think herpes is a big deal. If that sounds like you, or it sounds like someone you want to become, you're on the right track. Because it got me thinking about imposter syndrome. Sometimes I feel like an imposter, and not in the sense that I don't know enough, but in the sense that I shouldn't be where I am. I shouldn't be confident, disclosing herpes, no more stigma, able to help other people. If so many people out there are struggling with their diagnosis, it kind of makes me think like, am I delusional? How did I get here? I'm not special. This wasn't magic. I simply figured out how to get educated about the virus to understand it fully. So I didn't really deny it. I didn't put it over here. I didn't want to avoid it. And I figured out what the stigma was about. It's mostly based around sexual shame, and I don't really feel ashamed of how I live my life. And everyone out here is also pursuing that same act. Herpes is incredibly common. More people have it than don't. And I said, what kind of thoughts, opinions, beliefs, mindsets would a version of me that isn't stuck have? Let me see if I can adopt those. Because oftentimes we buy into the stigma, we buy into the shame, we buy into the negative self-talk over and over and over. And that's what keeps us stuck. So I want you to visualize right now, like the version of you that you probably are right now, watching this video, confused and lost and ashamed. And then picture the version of you on this side, some idealized version that is confident and has no problem with disclosure and can't be judged or won't be judged or, doesn't get derailed when they try and date and have a negative interaction. And really ask yourself, like, do you think that reinforcing that negative version of yourself is one day going to magically turn you into this version of yourself? And the reason why I bring up the imposter syndrome is because we are brainwashed in this world to all sort of think the same way, whether you are on one side of the diagnosis, not having it and being like, oh, herpes is the worst thing ever, or you get diagnosed and you're like, well, herpes is the worst thing ever, and now I have it and I'm stuck. We all sort of fit one of these two molds, and I think that anyone who is able to break free of that may feel a little bit like the black sheep, but in a good way. So you almost feel like you're guilty for feeling good, you're guilty for being confident. If you tell someone like, yeah, it hasn't been a big deal at all, people might look at you like, oh, you must be careless, like sleeping with people, but despite the fact that you have herpes. It's a crazy thought I hear sometimes is, wow, like you're still sleeping? You're still sleeping with people? Like you're still dating? Like, yes, I am dating with herpes, just like I would say 70% of the world. Well, 70% don't have it. What do you mean? Every single cold sore is herpes. Yeah, but I had that when I was a kid. I'm not a slut. There does come a point where you do sort of like get over that imposter phase. And I think you sort of get to where I am at and where my coaching clients have gotten. If you are looking for some help, how I can help you, check the first link in the description. It's a video. It's going to walk you through 3 steps. But I do think that you can sort of get to a point where you transcend the stigma, transcend the shame, and sort of look at the world objectively and the stigma objectively and say, like, this is a bunch of nonsense. Now, none of us are going to be immune to, I guess, like the stigma existing. It's like traffic exists. You could take a helicopter. I don't know if that's a good analogy, but there's nothing that you or I can do to avoid the stigma existing, but we don't have to acknowledge it. We don't have to put our energy into it. We don't have to absorb someone else's stigma that they're projecting onto us. And I think that in that initial stage from diagnosed to idealized version of you, hopefully where I am today, is you do feel like an imposter. You feel like, is this right? Should I be confident? Why shouldn't I be ashamed? When I tell someone, maybe I should over-explain, or I should try to defend myself. And that's one of the big keys is when you talk about disclosure, I always encourage my coaching clients to, less is more, the right energy. And I think that's true. It's like you almost feel like if you don't, oversell and trauma dump and tell them how you got it, you're not supposed to be defending yourself. It's just a simple virus that we're doing the I guess, decency of telling people. And after a while, after those first couple successful disclosures, or as you get more practice, it stops becoming this thing that you're, sort of impostorizing. Is that even a word? Impostorizing. And it just becomes natural. And I think at that point, that's where you somewhat never go back down to a negative place. Because I oftentimes think about myself, like, do I ever have negative days about a diagnosis? And the answer is no. I could get rejected, or I, might have some nasty comments online, but it doesn't matter. I'm no longer going to buy into that. I'm going to let everyone else live their ignorance as bliss. I'm going to see who slides into my DMs when they get diagnosed, in terms of, used to be trolling you, now I'm in your DMs, can you help me? And I think that that's the key. The key is, when you do feel like an imposter, that's the sign you're on the right path. And don't quit, and don't go back to where you were. And if you do want to try out an exercise, do that person you are right now and that idealized version of yourself, and write down the habits and actions and thoughts of who you are today, and see if it's making you stuck. And then write down the habits and actions and thoughts of that idealized version of yourself, and tomorrow implement those. Try to become that person. Push through the discomfort of feeling like you're faking it. Because honestly, fake it till you make it works with a diagnosis. If you want some extra help, check the description box. See you in the next video.